Hello, my name is Alexander Nietzsche. I am a current grad student at the University of Denver. I am in the master's program for marketing. The title of the session I attended is AI-enabled robots, possibilities, challenges, and ethics. Now, this was more held in the style of a panel. It was by Jackie White, who works for the Wall Street Journal. She was kind of conducting it and asking a lot of the questions. And those present were Bill Smart from the Oregon State University, Peter Stone from the University of Texas at Austin, and Andrea Tomas from Diligent Robotics. Now, this lecture was a lot more robotics-based, kind of talking about how the potential of combining AI with robotics. And so throughout the lecture, they kind of talked about how the robotics industry had been heavily benefiting from AI, with kind of the lecturers describing it as a brain in a jar. It has a lot of knowledge, it has a lot of useful information, but it has no experience to apply it with. So it'll have all this, but especially when combined with the robots, when it can physically move or it's expected to do any action, it definitely has a lot of work that still needs to be done and leaves a lot to be desired. But they're now to the point where they're able to start combining these AI models with a robotic body, which kind of gives more power to both of these kind of industries. And so throughout the topic, they talked a lot about how the current goal is to have robots in everyday life, whether that may be in your home, it could be in your workplace, maybe when you go shopping at a convenience store or some kind of entertainment. That is the current goal. They want to make sure robots that are very accessible and easy. And throughout the panel, they talked about how they believe that AI is the way they can make this happen. Now, currently, there are already robots that are working within factories, different workplaces, and even they mentioned some hospitals as well. However, the major problem that those within the kind of robotics world have been dealing with is that robots are just too expensive for general use. Any of the good ones that are actually going to be able to do things you want or be able to actually serve utility are going to be in tens, more likely hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions, depending. And so it's important in finding a balance between what exactly the company can provide and what the user can afford, because realistically, users can't afford too much unless they're already super high-end and wealthy. So it's definitely not something that will be available for general use. And so that's something they talked about, being able to have difficulty finding that sweet spot. But with the development of AI technology, they think that this time and distance gap, and especially the financial gap, will really be able to shrink and come together, making the robotics industry a lot more accessible for the average person. Also, the other thing that was heavily discussed throughout the lecture was the ethical concerns, especially when it comes to AI and robots. A lot of people are not very trusting when it comes to AI, especially with a lot of the narrative that science fiction has painted around it. When people think of robots or AI, maybe that shifted a little bit more with ChatGPT and the conversation around it, but typically they're still thinking like Terminator or something like that. So there's a lot of distrust of the AI, especially when they want to make robots that are able to communicate, work within a home, understand, adapt to issues. The main thing they're going to need are cameras and microphones so that they can listen and adapt, which the average person hates that idea of, like, a artificially sentient being just kind of walking around their home, listening and watching at all points. And so there's all these concerns for data privacy and security. However, then also people are like, okay, but then is it recording? Like, oh, if it bumps into a wall, or how is it collecting data if it's not even just to like improve itself or to have its own data set to work with through in the house? How's it going to be collecting data if it can't really record? Or how is troubleshooting going to work if it's not recording, so the actual company can't take a look at really what went wrong and happened? So there's a lot of different things that they still have to work through, is the implementation into the medical field as well. Because a lot of the main ideas they threw around throughout the panel were talking about elder care and how robots can really help with elder care, so they can help them with the basic functions. So they might not have to go into assisted living, or it could be potentially costly if alternative, assuming the technology progresses a little more. But even then, it would still need to be recording, and there need to be enough trust and training within the data set and robot, which there just still hasn't been enough standards and testing done yet. So there's a lot of ethical concerns of what will exactly constitute as good care and ethical care for a person, while also not invading their privacy. Also, the other concern within the medical field is the development of using robotics and AI for surgery. There's currently the Da Vinci robots that are out that are kind of assisting with surgery, and that technology is being developed. However, there's still a lot of robots there as well, because the ethics of all that. Who's the responsibility on if, let's say, something goes wrong during the operation? That's still beyond the surgeon trying to operate the technology, even if it was a technological fault. And so it kind of gets into whose fault is that, and how would they approach it, how would they deal with it, and there's just not enough laws and restrictions in place, which to the experts made them think that this kind of technology isn't going to be implemented for many years. However, regardless of that, most of them were still excited, and from the way they were able to talk about and demonstrate it, I also feel very excited for it. It's cool to see that the application of AI goes beyond just the generative AI that's been really popularized these days, to actually see it's going into different technologies, robotics. And it's an industry that has been moving very slowly, but with the development of AI moving up, I really do think that this industry is going to see a pretty big boom. We're going to see a lot more advanced robotics in the next 5, 10 years compared to kind of the slower developments we've seen in recent years. However, like I said, I still think there will be a significant time before we actually see it implemented and we actually get to see how that technology interacts with business and just our society in general.